Alright, here we are on the final part of part 5, Consider Yesterday series. And this is just going to be a quick video to kind of illustrate some basic points in the book of Revelation. Now it's important to remember that the book of Revelation was a letter written by the Apostle John to these 7 historical churches in Asia. And he was basically telling them what they were about to experience. And the letter, you notice, has a lot of symbolism. What he was using the symbolism was to reveal what was about to happen to the 7 churches in Asia without necessarily disclosing all that information to somebody if the letter got into the wrong hands. And you have to imagine this was a persecuted time, so it was kind of scary to speak out against the Romans and speak out against Caesar and so on and so forth. So what we see is the futurists, the popular Christian thought is that this is all going to happen in the future. And they add all kinds of speculation and all kinds of weird ideologies to make this fit sometime in the future. When the point I'm trying to make with this video is to make it that clear that this actually held validity to the recipients of the letter, the 7 churches in Asia, and what they were about to experience. So first we get into the Antichrist, which is mentioned in Revelation 13. And this Antichrist is called the Beast. This Antichrist is told to have a red beard, his head would be wounded to death, and he would come back to life, and he would reign for 42 months. Then it says he would kill with the sword, and then he would be killed by the sword, and also the 666 thing that we keep hearing about, the mark of the beast. So let me illustrate some interesting points. Nero Kaiser was called the Beast. Nero Kaiser was known for having a red beard, which is a very odd thing at that time period. Nero Kaiser committed suicide, which seemed to topple Rome, and there was riots throughout the land because of Nero Kaiser's death. And these 42 months, basically Nero reigned from 64 AD to 68 AD, which was 3.5 years. And he was known for killing with the sword. Actually, history says, they have a quote by Tertullian that says, "Consult your histories. You will find that Nero was the first who assailed with the imperial sword the Christian sect." So we clearly see that. And then to be killed by the sword, Caesar died from a stab wound in the neck. His assistant helped him commit suicide by stabbing himself into the neck. So, without basing any of this on speculation and just showing historical context, we see the Antichrist being Nero Caesar. Now let's talk about the mark of the beast, 666. If you break down Hebrew gematria, you will find that Nero Caesar fits 666. And this is something that is commonly taught, but I don't know how we miss that the Great Tribulation was that time. The Antichrist was in the Great Tribulation. So, also 616, which some points are made in some Bibles, some study Bibles, basically there was just a missing N, and it created some confusion about this name. So they omitted one, and it basically brought the name down to 616, which clearly shows that, once again, it had to be Caesar. Then we get into the false prophet. Also interesting to notice that when Caesar died, the Christians fled. They listened to what Jesus told them about this period in Matthew 24, and they fled to Pella. And now you have the false prophet that pops up. Basically, it's Vespasian that pops. He comes on the scene in 67 AD. He reigns for 42 months, 3.5 years, and he exercises the power that was given to him by Nero. Nero actually appointed Vespasian to authority, and he also caused everybody to worship Nero. He gave a lot of authority to Nero for what Nero had done and what Nero had given him to do. So, and basically to buy or sell, he forced people to buy or sell by the mark was obedience. He demanded obedience from these people. What you do with your right hand, obedient. So then we get into Babylon. Babylon is interesting because I see futurists using a really strange mix of history, speculation, fundamentalism, and also hints of militarism and racism and its prejudice against another group of people. Now, and clearly Zionism. So we understand Babylon to be clearly rebellion against God. You read about that in Genesis about how these people tried to build the Tower of Babel, and it was basically Babylon is people that have rebelled against God, and in some sense is trying to set themselves up to be God. So, and you see a little bit more about this in part 5. Who was Jesus declaring judgment on? Who were the people that were rebelling against God? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the people of Jerusalem. So, real quick, you look in Luke 21:24, you see Jerusalem will be trampled on. You see Revelations 11:8, it's the city where the Lord will be crucified. It's called the Great City. And then Revelations 18:24, cross-reference that with Matthew 23:34 through 39, and Luke 13:32 through 34, and you learn about it's all direct correlation of where the blood of the prophets would be. This great city, this Babylon, is where the blood of the prophets are. Jesus tells you that he must die in Jerusalem because no prophet has died outside Jerusalem. And basically tells Jerusalem straightforward, you have been killing the prophets ever since Abel. We clearly see Babylon to be Jerusalem. And this is what was destroyed in 70 AD. It's all clear in history. That's why we must consider yesterday. Now we get into Armageddon. Armageddon comes from the Hebrew words Har Megiddo, which was Hill of Megiddo. It was a historical place where people would gather their troops. Actually, in the Hebrew, it means the place of troops or the place of slaughter. So this is a place where troops would be gathered to go to war. Titus gathered his army on the Har Megiddo to cause him to have a natural insulation when he attacked Jerusalem. So also, Har Megiddo is in Jerusalem. Thus, this whole story is in Jerusalem. In 70 AD, Jerusalem was destroyed. It's all in history. So, once again, I will end this video with just search the history of this entire thing. This all happened in 70 AD. The Great Tribulation was fulfilled, so now we're looking forward to the second coming of Christ.